Here we are breaking down the basics, episode 22, focusing on engineered safeguards. All right, so this is the longer form content, has examples, as you guys already know. Number one, we're talking about independence. As you can see on the screen coming up next to me, we're looking at a temperature loop and we're looking at a temperature valve, right? So that valve may have an alarm, may have a switch on it. Next to it, you can see the XV in the same line, right? So we want that independence from the initial failure, and we want a separate interlock trip to trip that XV as a separate valve, right? And that's a true conservative level of independence, all right? That is tripping the system, and it's not tied to the loop or the initiating event, right? So sometimes we can get more in depth with this, and we can say we don't want a DCS failure to also have a DCS trip. We want to have an SIS trip. We only want to use DCS trips for manual failures, or we want to have separate PLCs, so that's kind of taking it a step above. But on this very basis, you definitely don't want to use an element that's part of the initiating event loop. You may have some instrumentation guys that can tell you how instrumentation and controls that shut the same valve is independent. Just make sure you're having that discussion in your PHA about independence, right? Secondly, you can see here, we're talking about layering. So we layered an instrumentation safeguard with a mechanical safeguard, but it still gets the point across, right? We can do this with multiple, all safeguards really, but we can do it with multiple instrumentation safeguards as well. So we have a pressure interlock trip. You can see the PIT here, and that's from a transmitter, and then it's going to trip something, do something else in the system, which is also in line with PSE that's being used. So you can layer both safeguards as long as they're independent together. Now, if you need, let's say for some reason you needed the PI to make the PSE active, then those become one trip and one item together, one safeguard together. So you want to make sure if you're taking it as two separate credits or additive credits, that they are independent. Lastly, we're taking a look at documentation on engineered safeguards. You can see here I've listed an SIS interlock. I have the number for it. What does it activate on? It activates on the tower, okay? So it's showing what device is it actually protecting, what instrument is it reading, and then what does it do? It closes a valve, right? So we put that valve tag in there as well to kind of show what it does. So you can also, if you, depending on what level you want to look at, you can also put any set points in there. You can put any other documentation that you think is going to be pertinent to that information. There's always documentation for these. We want to make sure that everybody knows we considered all the elements of this to make sure this is a good safeguard. As always, you can find more long-form content on our website and on our YouTube channel. Bear Process Safety, keeping you safe.